$800,000. That is the amount of money the offer that the guest I just interviewed owns made last week. $800,000 just from one offer in 1 week. And lifetime numbers over $74 million. Today, our guest, his name is Luke Kish. And I'm really excited about this interview because I've interviewed a lot of operators, people who are in the teams, more of the tactical stuff, and that's great. But I really wanted to bring in a CEO, a founder, somebody who was the operator, who published an expert who's the face of the business and scaled it up, and now is the CEO with over 100 plus employees. This is going to bring such a unique perspective and insight that isn't really out there today. So make sure to stay through the entire thing. And if you did learn anything, if you got one takeaway, drop it in the comments so people can find it. But with that being said, let's jump into it. Welcome back to another episode of the Offer Owner Spotlight. Today I'm sitting here with Luke Kish. I had the pleasure of meeting Luke in person in Dallas a few weeks ago. And after meeting with him, I knew we had to get him on the show because he's going to bring in a very interesting perspective of somebody who started as, you could say, a growth operator at the ground floor, bringing an offer up and scaling it into the millions, then transitioning to more of a CEO role where they have over 70 coaches on W2 in their company and many other people in the org chart. And so really stay through this and listen because it's going to give you that perspective of the person who's more the visionary, the leader of the company. And it's going to be really exciting. So Luke, I appreciate you being here, dude. I'm excited for
Thank
this
you for having me,
conversation.
brother. Yeah, likewise.
Let's do it. All right. So year or lifetime revenue, the company that you built and have grown, how much have you guys made so far? Just to get it out of the way for all the people wondering.
74 million.
74 million. And how
74
many
million.
employees, contractors you have inside the company right now?
Right now we have roughly 130 to 100 and right around roughly 130 to 140 employees, and then probably 30 to 40 contractors.
When you first started, and we could talk about this story. I'd love to get into like how you came about this company and started growing it. But when you first started, before all of it, did you envision and have in mind the vision of having a team with over 100 people on and being a CEO? Was that just something you're like, yep, that's what I'm made to be, that's where we're going? Or did it come through just the journey and eventually that belief stacked over time?
So the belief that I was always going to be a successful entrepreneur I've had for a while. So I've always had really big like ambitions and big appetite. So like I still do. And I really, I still don't feel like I'm doing much right now, to be honest. I'm like, very much so forward thinking in that sense. Did I like see employee counts or stuff like that? No. When I started though, I do remember I was targeting 500,000 a month, like right off the rip, and then getting to 1 million a month. Like that was why I moved from like what I was doing, which was like, physical product e-commerce back in the day into something where I felt like I could, grow a bigger, more substantial thing. And then, as you go, you need more people. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, if the goal is big, build big businesses and part of the requirement is headcount, then that just becomes part of the path. But it's not like I was like, oh, I want to have a certain
Yeah,
number
for
of
sure.
people. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk from the start then. How did this company that's over 74 million, how did it all start? I know for a lot of people watching this, they're pursuing a similar path of how you did it. And so I know you have an expert who's the face and you're kind of behind the scenes. So how did this come about? What was the story of how you found this person and got it off the ground?
Yeah. So the expert was a three-time or is, and now we have multiple brand faces, but she's still the main brand face. She's is a three-time pro natural physique athlete. And I saw fitness just kind of like popping off on the internet. And I was running ads and I was like kind of also hitting on her, to be honest. Like I was like kind of attracted. And so like, we would like chit chat at the gym. And then one of these
Oh
days I
yeah.
was like, hey, have you ever thought about like doing fitness online? Because she was like training with people. And she was like, no. I was like, oh, let me set up a funnel for you. And this is when stuff was so easy. I set up one funnel. She paid me 2,000 bucks. Um, this allowed her to run ads for a whole year. She paid me one time. She made more money training than she was doing nursing, and she stopped her nursing job. And then I reapproached her like a year later, and I was like, "Would you want to make this something more serious? Like, would you want to try and make this like a
Like
company?"
like dating or okay, company.
No, no, yeah, company. And then she said yes, which was great. And then, she's an amazing business partner. Really was just a good fit. And we worked together, and it was pretty much all us for quite some time.
Yeah,
And we're just scraping by, basically like, scraping by. So it's like we're paying our rent, and then like,
dang.
we have our bills, and then, just barely we're scraping by for a bit. And then it started to click, and then, one thing led to another, and, we
What
grew.
when you said started to click, what gave that indicator that things were working or you like hit it and the messaging was aligned, offer was aligned? When was that? What was the indicator? What did you do? What changed?
We built a sales team. So like my
Mm.
background was in sales. So I knew I could do it with sales, but I was like, I want to just do this all through the internet. Like I don't want to have any salespeople.
Hmm.
And then that kind of just stopped. I was like, fuck it, let's just try doing it like this way because I feel like we can do this. And then once we did that, yeah, it kind of started working.
What were you doing before? Were you using mid-ticket, like direct to cart or
Yeah, we were doing low ticket, mid ticket. We actually were called Alpha Female Fitness for like the first year and a half, and then we started getting traction on um low ticket and mid ticket, and then we got a cease and desist. And so like everything had this brand on it. Like there was not one piece of content, not one page, not one anything that didn't have this on it. So we had to rebrand, redo basically everything, all of our VSLs, all of our everything. And then we were doing that for maybe like a year. And like we had some months where we did like a few 100,000 and we're
yeah.
profitable. Um, but never popped where it was
Hmm.
like, ooh, this is the model, this is the line. And then
Yeah,
yeah.
gotcha. So from when you're doing everything, yeah, because you're doing everything at the time, right? You're writing the ads, you're building the funnels.
Mm-hmm.
You were you taking sales calls too at the start as
Hmm.
well? So you're the closer.
Hmm.
What was the first role you outsourced? Was it hiring more sales reps then?
Outsourced
No, we're going way back.
marketing tech. So Ryan,
Okay, so
Ryan,
that Ryan came in at that
yeah.
point,
Yeah.
marketing and tech. Gotcha.
Yeah, so marketing tech. I still was
Marketing tech.
I was like still building most of the pages, the messaging, the ads,
Hmm.
all of that, but he was then helping with the integrations and, back
How
then we
much
were
how much are you guys making per month when you brought in a marketing tech person? Just kind of show people like what's possible, just you yourself and this expert. Do you remember?
dude, we were making basically no money. I mean, I made a post where I was like before this, I spent like 5 years just like eating courses, and like I
Dang.
did drop shipping. I had months doing a 500,000 a month selling like bottle openers and dog hats and kitchen supplies and, a bunch of stuff. When the Eagles won the Super Bowl, I live in Philadelphia, we did like a beer koozie, and we sold like, 55,000 units or something like that in like 4 days. Like the Shopify thing was just like,
Just going those
yeah,
dopamine hits.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
The good old
yeah.
days. Oh man.
But yeah, I mean, that one was very much so like I knew stuff, and I
Yeah.
knew I needed somebody. So it was very much like vision based. And then like
Mm.
it was just a match where he was in his life where he was open to
Yeah.
something like that. And then, we just have been thick as thieves and together ever since. So,
Crazy. That's awesome. Okay, I want to get into just the mind, like who you are as a person, how you think,
okay.
because you're very interesting. I like when I was hanging out with you, like try to read you, like you carry. I can't really tell what's going inside your head, but yet you're building something so big, and you're kind of just like casual about. It. You're very yeah, you aren't like you don't seem really emotional where you make emotional decisions. And I could be wrong. That's just how I read you. So at your level with the team you have now and where you're trying to push things to, over, I think you said like trying like 10 million a month or whatever, some numbers you guys throwing around. What's the conversation in your head by yourself when you're thinking to yourself? What are you telling yourself to keep moving, to keep pushing forward, to lead the team? What are these like things you're saying to yourself that keep you going?
Um, I think that it's just how I'm wired largely. Like I don't think it's like a conversation. It's more like I don't know. It's just how I'm wired. Like my old mentor Bob Proctor used to always say, you don't choose what you want, right? Your wants
Mm,
choose you. You don't make your heart beat, you don't make your hair grow. It's hard to figure out why you want what you want, but you want what you
mm,
want. And for me, my appetite in business is just really big. I think actually part of that is like, part of that comes from like an insecurity and inadequacy issue, to be honest, where I feel
mm,
like, very driven from that side. And then there's like another part of me where it's just like, I believe I can do it and I'm extremely ambitious and I'm like very
mm.
confident. So I have both of those ranges. Um, and so it kind of just is my natural
Yeah.
like tendency or like my nature. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. When you say like insecurity, I feel that too because in my own life I've realized I chase recognition, and so that's what I do things to get recognition. But I know that could be a negative, but also be a positive.
Hmm.
So where have you seen it like with yours and like what kind of pushes you forward? Where does it become a negative in growing your business? Because like obviously there's positives. I mean, it's what's wired you the way you are, and you built something so big. But have you
Yeah.
had it course correct at any points?
Yeah, when I was younger, man, I made like $1 million by the time I was like 20 years old. And I went through that like kind of ego death of like thinking I was the fucking coolest kid in town and like was buying all the Louis Vuitton and the M5 and like, was like, oh, I am money, I am success, right? I really
Yeah.
identified with that. And then that company had issues and I went through like a full-on identity crisis where I was like, who am I? What have I
Mm,
been doing? Has these thoughts even been my thoughts? And I spent like 4 or 5 years, to be honest, in that place
dang.
of like just rolling through like what thoughts that I've been thinking are actually my own thoughts and for me and from me versus like things I've just inherited and have been thinking are my own thoughts because I've been thinking
Yeah.
them, but they actually like aren't mine. And I just was traveling and like reading spiritual books. So I kind of had that like lesson sort of early, which I'm very happy about. It's like I got
Yeah.
that out of the way.
Got it done. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's dope. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're currently doing, you know, what, 1.2, 1.4 a month with this offer? Maybe a little over that.
Well, it's not a software, so it's coaching
Sorry,
service.
offer, not
Yep.
software.
Yep.
Yep.
Last week we did like 800,000. So we're
800,000 1 week. Gotcha.
yeah, so we're
It's all right.
pacing.
Just kidding.
So we're pacing like, well, we did 30 million last year. We had
Yep.
like an issue towards the end of last year that came into the front half of this year.
Yep.
Now, we replaced the entire sales and marketing leadership, which oversee about like 60, 70 people.
Dang.
And since that happened, now everything's kind of starting to click. Knock on wood. I'm very optimistic for where we are right now as a company.
What is to get to 10 million then in your mind? Like what are you saying? Like obviously it's probably pretty simple. I mean, you probably just say do more of the same stuff better, but is there like a few things or every day you wake up like this is what we need to do or this is what we need to add or focus on? Like what does that look like? 1 million, 800,000 a week to then getting to 10 million a month. What needs to change?
Um,
Or what do you need to do more of?
Obviously volume. So we need to do more volume. So,
Hmm.
that's like multiple brand faces, multiple inflows. How we broke it last time was trying to do like 50 million through one funnel a year.
Dang.
And, the strategy there was just incorrect. So it's like we were trying to execute on a flawed premise that like this
Yeah.
is how we would go scale to where we're trying to scale to. So now it's broadening out, having it working with 4 or 5 fronts, multiple
Mm.
kinds of funnels, low ticket, VSLs, direct to apply VSLs, and then multiple faces.
Hmm.
So that, and then, it's people, it's
Yeah.
it's it's very much people now.
So multiple faces, how are you integrating that smoothly so that customers aren't like, wait, what happened to, Nikki, like the main person? What's the strategy there to kind of bring in more faces? And then I'm curious, does that open the company up to better potential to exit? Because
Mhm.
then it's not just built on one person.
Yeah. Yeah. So the exit play is like, we have to do something other than just service-based coaching, I believe.
Fair.
But the brand faces is part of that. Like it's a step in that direction because you also want to have multiple, it's called key man risk. You don't want to have key man risk where if like everything's running through one face or one person and then that person decides they don't want to do it anymore or whatever, that's a big risk to a buyer. So yes. And then what was the other question? The it's not an issue. It's like we haven't
Okay.
had an issue for it. So, you know, for a long time, it's been like UGC ads.
Yeah, it's like fake faces kind of being the spokesperson.
Yeah, yeah. So it's not like all one person and then um, congruency. So it's like first we work with the brand face. We have like a set just contract for ads. We do all ad scripts. They
Okay.
record, we edit, we run tests on them to our funnels. And then once they're proving out, like looking decent with our funnels, then we take them and, we do a full shoot with them and then put them through VSLs and then pull them all the way through the funnel.
Oh, okay. That's super cool. Yeah, so
Yeah.
you're like testing, you're not like, so I was wondering, how do you pick the right person? Like how do you know they're going to be a good fit? But you're just testing them on the ads.
Yep.
Okay. And then what personality wise, characteristics of the actual their personality, their identity, how they operate, what do you look for in these women that are coming in to make sure they're
Um,
not going to be like come like how do you make sure they're not going to be like when I do deals, I'm always making sure it's someone who doesn't have ego or whatever, start coming back, I need more money and for I'm the face, oh I deserve, like how are you kind of doing your best to make sure that there's a less likelihood of that, for that to happen?
One is like understanding what we have. So like we can put these people in a really good situation where, they make a very fair slash above fair amount of money for like a pretty leveraged kind of work, right? It's like you have to
True.
give, a couple pieces of content a month and do a shoot and then you can make a decent income. So we have that there. And then what I'm looking for is like market match. So,
Mm,
are they the demo we're trying to break into? And then, we're so good with marketing and scripts and VSLs and stuff that like if we know that they fit the demo and they're going to resonate and then, they look the part so they have the authority based on a lot of fitness is like being like seeing's believing. Like they'll look at somebody, is this person had a transformation that we want to uh you know
yeah.
yeah, want to like is like obviously resonant with people that are trying to have that same transformation, then looking the part, we can help with the words and we take their story, then they go with our copywriters, make a
Mm,
whole VSL ads around their story and copywriting.
dang.
And
That's so
then
sick.
yeah,
I love that. That's so cool. I know talking to Ryan, he's big on like going deeper with things
yeah.
and that this is like going deeper with offer publishing. It's not just having one face, it's introducing other faces where it can do that. I'm wondering like where does that not work? I wonder what industries where that doesn't work, but
Yeah, I mean, you have to have people who have the skill set.
yeah.
Fitness is one of these ones where it's so competitive. There's so many people online who want to make money in fitness. There's so many people
Yes.
who are really good at fitness, and there's so many
Yeah.
people who only can do one of the parts, right? It's like
True.
there's very few and far between people who are running fitness things on their own that are actually like making, say, a decent
Yeah.
income from it. So it's like if they get somebody who's like, hey, look, we'll do all the fulfillment. We'll do all of the sales. We'll do all of the everything. All you have to do is read these
Coach.
words that we give you and like do it good. We'll edit it, we'll do everything, and then
Yeah.
we'll be
You
able
get
to
to be a
pay you. They're
coach.
like, fuck yes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Because I feel like all the personal trainers I know, they're I mean, yeah, they're really good at fitness, bro. Like they're
Yeah.
so smart.
Yeah.
They're so good at their craft and they're not good at selling. And then there's the people who are really good at selling and usually but then they kind of suck at fulfillment.
Yeah.
But It's kind of hard, but with your model, it's like you guys can be really good at selling it and then they're really good at fulfilling it, and it just makes sense.
Yep, exactly.
It's crazy. I was recently watching an episode on it's Business Wars. They're talking about Weight Watchers, like Weight Watchers versus Nutrisystem and Jenny Craig, or all these OG dieting trends and
Oh, that
how much
sounds super
money.
interesting.
Bro, you gotta
Yeah.
Business Wars. It's like the best. It talks about like the challenges, the ups and the downs, and it's crazy what numbers they were pulling and still do. And it's insane how when they would recover, like some of their stocks would go down to 60 cents a share, and then they would go all the way up to $60 with just one marketing campaign.
Yeah.
And they're just constantly recovering. And I just listening to that, it just kind of gave me belief like, oh, you can always bounce back. Like, why you don't need to be afraid, or like in the scale of it, like
Hmm.
600 million, company with 600 million on their shares and doing more than that a year just on fitness coaching and support.
Yeah, baby.
So 10 million a month. I was listening to that. I'm like, oh, they got it.
Yeah, for sure. We do.
You got it. Okay, team. You said so obviously volume, different funnels. You guys just had one funnel, so now you have direct application. I know you guys have low ticket. I know you have the VSL, multiple faces, so you got all the volume there, and then people, obviously those faces. In terms of just leading a team as CEO, what are some like tips for someone who's like trying to publish offers like this to be that leader and to lead the team? What are some of the things that have really helped? And what are you supposed to do? Like your role as a leader. I know it's really broad, but
Yeah.
distilling it down, what are you really doing to make the team, work well, move forward?
What am I really doing? So I am aligning people on a future. So it's like there's a clear future. Here's the direction that we're heading.
Mm,
Number one. Number two is that direction being big enough so that other big people with big personalities and big goals for themselves can be inside of it and still accomplish their goals. And then it's aligning incentives and being
mm,
like fair. So, like I look at myself as like a person who uses resources to align a bunch of people's uh,
mm.
self-interest to a greater good and
Oh,
then
okay.
getting them
Yeah.
all on the same page. So it's
Mm,
like, it's like everybody is trying to win for themselves, right? And it's like
true.
not hiding from that fact and then going really clear on like what it is. Like,
Huh.
what do you want, right? It's like if you go and you hire the best anyone, like they're going to want something, so it's like just
True.
getting clear on, hey, what is this and can we make this happen for you, right? And then like
Yeah.
having that all open, that's those are the main things. And then just keeping everybody together. So it's like, when you have a bunch of strong personalities and a bunch of
Yeah.
strong opinions and a bunch of people who, you know, take control and own their stuff and are high quality. Like we're very entrepreneurial where, people who are leading departments or managing departments is like they're running their shit and they're running their ship. So, I kind of have the role of like, you know, making sure that everybody is um sticking together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everybody's on the same page and we're all, there's not communication issues. There's not, it's really like that's one of the main things as well is
Yeah.
like making it so there's like clean communication and like,
Mm.
if there's problems, it's like I call it like being the awkward elephant hunter. So it's like if people are having like,
Huh.
these quarrels or like differences and they work together, like if you don't unplug that or unclog that, then you have communication issues. And when you have communication issues, everything goes slow. So, it's like going around and just like, here's this. Well, okay, the comp plan got screwed up over here. And then, you know, she doesn't realize that this is happening to their team and like the way he's saying it is this, so like we need to all get together and like, okay, let's hash this out. This is why this is important. This is why this is important. This is where she's coming from. This is where he's coming from. All right, we're all on the same page now. Okay, let's fix this. Boom, now we go. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. I feel like that's something like it's that helps me simple, like make more simple in my mind because I feel it's so broad. Be a leader, CEO. It's like, what are you really doing? But yeah, I like the idea of what do they want?
Yeah.
Okay, selfishly, just be honest. What do you want?
Yep.
And it's like, here's what I want. Is there a way where we can both get this? And
Exactly.
then make sure nothing gets awkward so that people don't get aligned from that.
Right, because
That's what
people
I'm
will be
doing.
behind the scenes, like, and like it's not, then it's like, you have like a resent or like you have like this
Yeah.
thing and like no one's talking about it. And it's like you get on a meeting and everyone's like, you know,
Yeah.
nothing's like, it's like, what the fuck do we actually need to talk about right now? You know what I mean?
Yeah, true. It's like
Yeah.
everyone's just like grumbling behind the scenes, and that
Yeah.
probably creates bad culture because it's like, oh yeah, Luke's doing that, and then just
Mhm.
okay, let's say you're casting vision as the CEO, and you're like, this is where we're going, guys. Here's what we're doing, but then
Mhm.
you don't get there, or it just like fails. How do you respond or deal with that?
Well, what do you mean by fail?
Well, like I don't know, like I think about if you're saying, hey, this is the place we're going, like we're scaling and this is where we're going, this is how we're going to do it. Or maybe before, like you said, you thought you were going to do it with to 50 million with one funnel
Yeah.
and that didn't happen. I know that's like just maybe a smaller one, but as even if it was bigger, like has there ever been times where you were like, this is it, and you were so like, this is where we're going, and then you just had to accept, ah, shoot, like it didn't happen or it didn't work. Like, has that ever happened before, and how do you deal with that?
So like when things aren't working, I think like number one is like, okay, is it like not working because it can't work and we have like a flawed plan?
Mm,
Ideally, you're not in that situation. If you are in that situation, then it's like you need to change your plan and then kind of shift the vision. And then number two, like if you're leading a vision, you can buy yourself time with your level of commitment to getting it done if it's not working in the immediate. So like for example, we were like burning money, right? And I didn't make anybody do capital contributions. I just took chunks of money out of my bank account or one big chunk of money out of my bank account, put it into the bank account. And then when we're on a meeting, I was literally like, I will go to fucking zero. I was like, there's no way that we cannot turn this fucking thing around. If this company's doing this and this company's doing this and our thing is better and we have the talented people. I was like, so it's like if you have that, then you can buy yourself time. But I don't consider that like, it's not like you're like failing. It's just like
true.
things aren't working
Yeah.
at that moment. And then like the team needs to see, okay, like, these people are in. And then ideally you're with
Mm,
people that are also in too. So if the incentives are aligned, right, and the upside's
yeah.
there, then that's what like helps those storms get weathered because other people
Gotcha.
also want to see it through. They also want to see it work because their upside's there when it is working.
True, true. You said like hopefully you're not in a situation where you just have the wrong plan. How do you evaluate that you do have the wrong plan? How long do you go with something, or is it getting outside feedback from other people? Do you consult with others? How do you evaluate that so you know when to make the call, like, all right, wrong plan? Because I feel like some people make the call too early and they actually never really knew. But it's kind of those hard
Hmm.
things because every situation is different. So how do you personally make the best call as a CEO? I know it's a hard one to answer, but
Yeah, it's a hard one to answer. It's like all
right.
I know is you better be fucking
Gut
right.
feeling.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just gut
Like,
feeling. You're just like, frick. All right. It's time
yeah,
to
I
go.
mean that is another reality that most people probably don't want to like, lean into is like you do have to be right. You know what I mean?
True.
It's like it is hard and you have to be right. And so you have to be involved enough where like you can figure out why something's not working. You know what I mean? Like there's a
Yeah.
guy Ryan Blair who works with my friend Daniel and I talked to him a little bit when I was
Mm,
like in this hard period and he's like wartime CEO, you go wherever the problem is, you micromanage the fuck out of it. And that gives you like high fidelity feedback on what the problem is. So
mm,
if you're heavily involved and like I realized it took me a while to realize that hey, our strategy was incorrect in trying to shove it through one funnel. Although for a year I'd been saying it to the team, like we need to bring on
yeah.
more faces. We need to do this. It just wasn't happening. And
Mm,
then, we work through, the best agencies in marketing that money could buy. We're spending 150,000 a month on agencies. And it's like, okay, these guys can't help us, you know,
yeah.
we gotta like look, okay, we need to just pivot. You know what I mean? We need to
Yeah.
adjust. We need to try
Because
something new.
with those agencies, to you, it's like they are just were they pushing just that one funnel, and you're like,
Mhm.
fix it. Like, why doesn't it work? And then they're just like, they no matter what they could have done, it never would have gotten fixed. It was just the wrong plan.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. I wonder how many people run like I feel like a lot of business run into that because the agency always gets the smoke at first. It's kind of like you go
Yeah.
through so many and sometimes just the wrong plan.
Yeah, exactly. It's like there's a lot more than marketing that needs to happen for this shit to work. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
marketing's the first part, and then there's got to be a lot of other stuff that can work. So,
Yeah, true.
yeah, I mean, bottom line is you got to be close enough and have enough context, have enough skill, and then be right, you know?
Yeah. Do you okay, now kind of covered that. I want to get more into just like personal as we close kind of your lifestyle, things you do discipline wise. But also before that, do you ever look at other businesses or markets just for fun, kind of, oh, that's really cool, or that'd be a cool business idea. Like, are you still a visionary outside of your business?
Mhm.
Uh, you still are? Okay,
Mhm.
I'm curious, what's a business market or model that you think is really cool right now? It's pretty sexy that you're like, if you weren't focused on this one thing, that you would get into.
Well, I think I'm going to do them, so
Okay,
it's it's
okay.
it's it's just a matter of time.
Okay. Any of you willing to share? You don't have to be really specific, but I always like talking to visionaries. I know you would see, I'm always looking at other things and sometimes you have
Yeah,
to wait
so
to do it.
physical product e-commerce, I feel
Okay.
like,
I
doing
get
that the
behind that.
right way is something that can be super lucrative.
Hmm.
And then so I have like a product idea there around
Okay.
like beauty.
Yeah.
And then another one is like mixing the complexity of like a company like ours with like the
Yep.
digital back end and CRM and marketing and sales and funnels and automations and all of that with like a blue collar thing. So it's like
Ah,
those are very like uh far away from one another. It's like you think
true.
of blue collar work and it's like a guy in a truck who's like showing up, and then we have like a
Yeah.
labyrinth that like you could spend a year going through and still not like
Yeah.
understand fully what's going on.
True.
So
That's
yeah,
true.
those kinds of businesses.
Gotcha. When have you guys, I know you're in the health space. Have you tied in supplements on the back end yet?
No, we're going to though.
Smart.
Yeah.
How like have you projected like what do you think that's going to do overall to revenue? I'm kind of like it's crazy because I feel like when I see other people do it, it's pretty significant of a boost on the
Yeah,
back
now that we're
end.
doing low ticket, I mean, I think it can be really substantial.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's sick. And then you get the subscription, and then even more so, it makes it more exitable, right? Because then it's got the
Yes,
recurring.
exactly.
That's dope. That's dope.
Yes.
All right, lifestyle, day to day. What's your schedule look like at this level? This many team members, this much money. What day to day? What does your life look like
It
behind the
very
scenes?
it very much so depends on like what's going on.
Okay.
So, CEO job is like what's the biggest problem? And then, that problem can look a million different things, and then you could have to be doing a million different things for that problem. And then, sometimes it means, nonstop at the computer all day. Sometimes it means like really just thinking about filling one position all day. Sometimes
Yeah.
it means, letting people breathe and breathing and like thinking. So it's
Yeah.
not like there's this extremely structured regiment that I do. I do meetings
Pretty free flowing.
on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I try and stack all my meetings on the same days.
Okay.
And then yeah, it's whatever's going on at that period in
Just chilling.
time. Yeah.
What do you do for fun outside of work? Do you have any hobbies outside of business? Or are you just the type of person to hustle? This is it. This is your pleasure.
Yeah, it is my pleasure. It is my
Okay.
pleasure. Like I
Sick.
enjoy building, I do want to build really, really big stuff, which I think is
Yeah.
different than like not really, really big stuff. It
Hmm.
requires more, at least so far it has. Maybe I'll figure out a way where it doesn't require more eventually, but right now it does.
Yeah.
I go to the gym religiously. I do
Yep.
sauna. I golf sometimes.
Okay. Okay.
Um, yeah,
Nice. I love that. Yeah, because I know for
yeah,
some people it's so different. I always like to share that because some people have different lifestyles and some people resonate with that and others don't. So I know there's some people listening to this that may admire what you do and what you've built and also the lifestyle you live and may want to model that. So I think
yeah.
that's sick. Last thing, investing outside of the business and like your time, obviously your money going in the business. at this level, are you putting your money anywhere else into anything, or is it just back into the businesses you're growing?
Crypto, stocks, high yield accounts, and other than that, back into the business.
Nice.
Yeah, and then I like to hold cash. I like to just have
It's like
you
to open
know,
up that account and you're like, hey, okay, we're chilling.
yeah, yeah. My virtual family office guy was like, "Why do you have so much cash?" And uh and then I had to put like a big chunk into the company. I was like, "This is why I have so much cash."
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
And you got any Bitcoin? You got money in
Yeah, I
Bitcoin?
got Bitcoin, I got Ethereum,
Yes, up
Solana.
109 today. Let's
Is
go.
it?
Yeah, bro.
Let's go, baby.
Bro, it's
Holy
pumping right
shit.
now. It's pumping. You're probably up big.
109. Come on.
At least that's what it was this morning. I was up like 30%.
Yeah, and then one other thing I try and do that's like routine wise is like if you're watching this and you're making like more than 250,000 bucks a year, get a house manager.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Tell me
Get a
about
house
that.
manager.
I want that, bro. Because I'm gonna get a house soon. I do not want to take care of a house.
Yeah. I mean, even it's like a life, it's like so like, I have all of my everything basically done for me, which is
Dang.
such a huge unlock.
Food? You got a chef?
Everything. So
Dang.
not a chef, but it's like meal prep. They meal prep
Okay.
it. So it's
Okay.
like, but she's decent at cooking, but it's like all shopping, all my vitamins all get packed, all my protein drinks for the gym, they get put in little things. So I just throw the thing in my bag, all laundry, all mail, all grocery shopping, all cleaning, watering the plants, just anything.
What does that cost? Like you said, you're doing 250,000 a year. You said you should have a house manager. Like you saying all that should be outsourced, and how much usually does that
You can
cost
do
us when
that.
you?
You can do the house management part for like 2, 3 thousand a month.
But I pay a copyright. You pay copywriters and media buyers that. It's like, bro,
Yeah,
easy.
you pay. Yeah, for sure. You pay
You
them
pay
way
some bum
more.
freelancer that. You might as well
Yeah,
get your house taken care of.
yeah. That's
Dang.
huge. Like, not having to
Huh.
worry about that stuff. And then I don't know, like just imagine if like how like when like you and your girl like you go shopping and like the fridge is just fully stocked. You got all the drinks that you
Yeah.
want, all the laundry's done, all the food's in there, and you just feel like clean and clear. You just know you
Heck
have
yeah.
everything. Like just having that permanently um increases your capacity to
You don't
go do
even
stuff.
that so you don't even need to get married, dude. You're chilling. You could
Yeah.
just you're set. That's I mean, man, I took the more expensive route, getting married. You guys a little more than 2,000 a month, but that all that stuff gets done. Praise God.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, you definitely have other,
Yeah,
elements.
there's other
I don't
benefits.
get from house
Yeah.
management.
There's things outside of it. Okay, that's true. That's sick though. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
You're like, like the Ashton Hall dude that went viral a few
Yeah.
that's pretty much you are, right? Everyone's handing you stuff, got your gym bag. So you got
It's
everything.
not like that, but yeah, yeah. I would
That's
say,
awesome. That's
yeah,
awesome,
less
dude.
theatrical.
Yes, exactly. Not on camera.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I appreciate it. This is
Yeah.
very insightful. I love sharing this side because you see the operators. I feel like we interview a lot of operators and people that are on your team and in the trenches, but it's a whole nother thing to be the visionary, the CEO. And so I appreciate you sharing that. I really admire it. And it's you're in the role where like I'm trying to head. And so you're setting a great example. And I hope
Thank you, brother.
other people take notes. It's really cool to see.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you having me on.